So we are reconvening and on to public hearing item D, 23-1ZS of Town of Plainfield requesting a zoning regulation text amendment to delete section 12.21 municipal uses and add new section 15.9 municipal uses. Do we have someone to speak for the applicant?
Kevin Cunningham, 405 Moose Pond Road. And I would also like to ask that the town attorney also come forward to discuss the issue. The items also in front of you from 12.1 to the 15.9 have to do with the town asking how can we go forward with knowing exactly how our zoning regulations would benefit different projects going forward and knowing how to apply for them. And so between our attorney and Ryan, we came together with some ideas, and what we have for municipal uses is what you see in front of you with 15.9. If you want me to read through, I could.
If you want to highlight the points of the application, that would be great.
Sure. So we are looking for basically the types of items for municipal uses for their what some districts are in, the exemptions and the uses. Your biggest concern is the uses, and you have as right of zoning permit. Talking about the accessory structures, the use is permitted as right of commission site approval. Again, talking about the size of those additional structures and what goes with it. The other item is permitted special use by site plan. So what goes with it. This makes it much easier for a town to be able to walk forward and say, what item is it we'd like to be able to apply for it, how to apply for it. I can give you an example of what I'd like to share with you. We have a plan in place where we'd like to go forward with a project down in Moosup. And the Moosup Green has an opportunity to do other things, such as we'd like to put a gazebo up there, we'd like to put some park benches. Now I'd like to know is what level of permitting do I have to have? What items do I need to have done? Do I have to have surveyed? Do I have to have it engineered? And so coming from the town side of it, I'd like to know ahead of time because it makes it difficult to try to plan ahead of time. Because really, if you're looking for surveying and engineering, we're talking about $10,000 per project. These are costs that are passed on to the taxpayers. So I need to know ahead of time. So if I was to bring forth a project that's maybe costing $30,000, I'd have that in the budget for the next year. So this, I believe, does address those issues. And again, if you do have follow-up questions for our attorney, he is right here.
Okay. Is he front row?
Yep.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind just coming to the front, and that way it's easier to get to the microphone if a question is needed or clarification. All right.
This is attorney Rich Cody, for those who don't know.
Okay. Is he presenting as well? Or are you just here for questions?
Here for questions, and I'm actually going to refer mostly to Ryan because he drafted this.
Okay.
And I think he's put together a tiered approach to municipal uses.
Okay. Ryan, was there anything you wanted to present before I open the floor to the public?
So just go over some things.
If you want to have a seat while he presents, that would be fine.
So small projects such as sheds, gazebos, things less than 900 square feet would be allowed by zoning permit, which is the standard for residential. Anything over 900 square feet would go to site plan review. And then larger projects such as new uses and projects exceeding 2,000 square feet would be allowed by special permit. And the commission would also have the right to waive a formal site plan for certain projects. If you decided that it did not require a full site plan, but use an aerial photo for, say, a 1,000 square foot garage or something of that nature, you would have the ability to do that.
Okay. Any other points? Any other points for the public, or I can open the floor then? All set? Okay. So this is a public hearing. If you have a comment or question on this application, this is your opportunity to step up to the microphone, state your name and your address, and what your comment or question on this application is.
Beth Anderson, 49 Diet Street in Moosup. So I had mentioned before that I am the founder of Mission Moosup, which is an organization that we founded to really rejuvenate downtown Moosup. One of the suggestions that came out of our brainstorming session, as well as one of our first meetings, is to turn the green into something more than just a patch of grass. I know that particular project is not up right now, but this particular piece that is something that is holding that project up. So I'm in agreement that something of a compromise should be made, because I am not a believer that town should have complete control over what happens with town property, but I do believe we have to come to some sort of balance. For me, it's kind of ridiculous that I myself can put a shed in or park like a bench on my property without a problem, but we can't put a bench on the green without going through a lot of red tape and a lot of other issues. So I think this is a nice compromise between the two. I'm all about the compromise because it has to work for everybody, but it does hold back on some of these projects that aren't huge, buildings or changing scope of space or anything like that. But it allows those smaller projects to go forward that will help with the revitalization of our small communities, whether it be Moosup, whether it be Plainfield, Meridian, the other villages. I think that's a huge step in the right direction. Because unfortunately, the more red tape we put on these things, that's when the steam stops rolling. That's when people get discouraged. That's when people just be like, you know what, forget it, it's not worth it. And you just see that stagnant or you see that decline. So for me, I think it's a good compromise between the two.
Okay, thank you. So if you have a comment or question, just come on up to the microphone.
Linda Jarnes, I support Plainfield. So by taking out 12.21, do we have to take that out, or can't these projects be worked on with the zoning board? We have to take out this section, or do we leave that section in and you just work with the town on these projects?
So this would override section 12.21. So 12.21 essentially says that everything has to go to public hearing. This requires a special permit. This breaks down the categories. So it's just being put into a different section.
So the planning and zoning board wouldn't have jurisdiction like over this, they would just be able to do it?
No. So larger projects, things over 800 square feet, new uses would have to go before the Planning and Zoning Commission. This would allow for, 900 square feet. This would allow for smaller structures to be permitted through a zoning permit, a gazebo or a shed or something of that nature.
So Ryan, perhaps it would be beneficial to the public to understand what would come before zoning and what would not. So if we look at 15.9, Section B, exemptions, permit not required, how would the town go about that process? What would be the process for item B? Because if a permit is not required, what is the process? So it would not come before the board, am I correct?
For exemptions, so...
Correct, permit not required.
No permit required at all with the park benches, informational signs, landscaping, commemorative signs, plaques, monuments, similar uses.
Correct, so if the town wants to do any of those things, there would be no process to go through because there's no permit required.
Right.
So it would be done without any additional notification, approval, etc.
Also in that would be replacement or addition of playground equipment and recreation equipment, provided that the perimeter of the playground recreation area is not expanded. Walking trails, provided they are not located within 100 feet of a residential lot. So if we have walking trails and we want to add a couple more, as long as it's not close to any houses, they can just cut the trail through. All municipal uses within a town or state right of way, which doesn't typically come before this commission. And then you have uses allowed with a zoning permit, and that would be accessory structures and additions to structures not to exceed 900 square feet footprint or 2 stories. Advertising signs for existing commercial uses, existing municipal uses, and change of use or new municipal use within an existing structure. So let's say the senior center wants to change up the use inside of it. They can do so with use of zoning permit.
Right, but the process for a zoning permit is to go to the zoning office
Correct.
and you issue the permit.
Yes.
It does not come before the board. It does not come public hearing. There would be no public notification or hearing. The town would work with you. You would approve the zoning permit, and they would move forward that way. It would not come before the board anymore.
Correct. And just for clarity, the purpose of a public hearing is so that public can comment on things that could impact it. That's why we have public hearings. So a new municipal complex, that could have an impact in there. We definitely want that to go to public hearing. But replacement of something that's already existing, there's no impact. So use is permitted as of right with a commission site plan approval. Accessory structures and additions exceeding 900 square feet of footprint or 2 stories, but not to exceed 2,000 square feet of footprint or 2 stories. So between 900 and 2,000 will be site plan review. Expansion of existing uses such as parks and passive recreation areas and municipal facilities up to 1/2 acre of additional area. Parking areas for existing uses. So if you have a playground or something, you want to have a little parking, you can do it with the site plan review. Utilities such as sewer pump stations, the commission reserves the right to waive a formal site plan with 3/4 of a vote. So the town wants to install a pump station. They don't have to go through a full survey or whatnot. The commission could waive that formal site plan as with the other permitted uses under D, which is accessory structures, expansion of existing uses, parking areas, things of that nature. Then you have uses permitted by special permit with site plan approval. There will be new municipal uses such as parks, passive recreation areas, municipal complexes or facilities, and municipal parking areas. So a new use that could have an impact on the area would require a public hearing. Accessory structures and additions exceeding 2,000 square feet of footprint or 2 stories. Expansion of existing uses such as parks and passive recreation areas and municipal facilities, more than 1/2 acre of additional area. The commission reserves the right to waive a formal site plan with 3/4 of the vote.
All right, so just to summarize, exemptions do not come before the board. A zoning permit does not come before the board, but does go to the zoning officer. A site plan review does come to the board, and then special permits do come through the board. Is that summary accurate, Ryan? Okay.
So if you're like next door to someone's house, do you still have to notify them that something's going on next door? Or you wouldn't have to notify anybody over?
If it's a special permit, yes.
So if it is no permit required, zoning permit, or site plan, there's no abutting property owner notification. Only special permits.
Okay, I think it's just a little bit too broad. Or it kind of takes the planning and zoning out of
Not for debate, it's just a comment.
it. Just a comment. So, thank you.
1, then 2.
If you take these people out of it, within 5 years, they'll be incorporated in zoning. You have to understand, people want to know what's going on in their backyard. And if they can't come to the board meetings and hear it like this, I don't think this should happen at all.
Thank you.
Mr. Frank Zach, Mr. Connecticut. It appears to me the applicant, got a full page here of deletions and additions. Appears to me the applicant, if they want to delete all of 1221 and add 15.9, where is the certified notice to the abutters and the public notice, where's that aspect to be public, as notice for the townspeople? I just don't, I shouldn't be asking you, I should be asking the applicant, I guess, but will public comment at a public hearing? So things can happen, things can happen as of right, that one really gets me as of right. So if it's as of right, it means the town can do it, and believe me, I think the town should be every taxpayer in this room, but not necessarily the elected officials, because they do come and go, seems to me that you can't just remove a whole bunch of regulations and put some in that don't require public notice. The public has to be notified of activities that are going to be done. And as far as what is town property, property, as far as I'm concerned, belongs to the public, not elected officials. Thank you.
So just to clarify, Ryan, the certified notices are only required for special permit. There would also be no public notification of exemptions because no permit's required. There'd be no public notification of an as-right zoning permit because that's done in the office. That's not a public process, right? Okay. And then when it comes to the site plan, the only public notice would be the notice of our meeting agenda. Am I right? There's not a required public notice of site plans because they are by right.
Right.
Okay.
You could write that into the regulations, that even though it's by site plan review, you could require public notice for the butters.
So then the only one that would actually have the public notice required is the special permit process.
Right.
Yeah.
Low 2.9 North Road, Plainfield. I'm new to this whole municipal government situation. I want the state government, but the municipal government is doing the running away. I'm a little suspect, actually, with I see the town had made the request for this particular change, but it's you as a board member that they're referring to.
On staff.
He's zoning staff, so when it comes to a zoning permit, it goes through staff, not the commission.
Right, and it appears to me, the public, that you're in favor of this and that you're trying to push this agenda through. That's how it's appearing to me coming back.
The goal is to loosen things up a little bit.
So I'm just going to defend staff for a moment. The staff's involvement is to present the application.
I'm learning, so
Yeah,
I'm not
so
accusing you of
when
anything.
when
Yes.
staff is presenting an application, they're presenting it as it is, and whether it appears they're in favor or not, they're presenting it. So for the simple motion of presenting something doesn't necessarily mean someone's in favor. For example, when we take votes, Robert's rules suggest that votes always be in the affirmative, so that a yes vote is a yes vote and a no vote is a no vote. So even if we were in unanimous denial of something, someone has to make a motion to approve in order to push the vote so that yes means yes and no means no. So I just want to defend staff on
And
that.
I'm not, me personally, I'm just learning all of this, and I just assume you're part of it before.
So, just to go through something. Currently, the process requires an A2 survey for even simple projects, which is very burdensome and expensive. It's about $10,000 for a survey.
And it's burdensome for myself as a town taxpayer to have to do the same process
Because certain projects can actually double in cost.
as for myself.
Okay, so hold on, we don't want to turn this into
Oh,
a
I'm sorry,
debate.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so just let him finish his explanation. If you have additional comment or question, you're welcome to it, but this is not a debate, this is a public
I'm
hearing.
sorry.
Yep, that's okay.
So in addition to that, it typically takes 6 or so months to go through the process of getting the survey, and then you have to come before the commission. So for small things, sheds, gazebos, things of that nature, that have little to no impact at all, it allows that to be done by a zoning permit, rather than go through the survey, the public hearing, all things of that nature. So,
I actually agree with that part. I don't agree with the T&E part.
Okay. Is there a specific comment you want to make about those sections, or just a general
Well,
statement that you're opposed to that part?
From what I'm understanding is that they would just circumvent this and just get a special permit and waive everything else. Like myself, if I want to do an addition on my house, I can't just ask for a special permit and waive all the plans and just go build it.
You can actually just get a zoning permit with an aerial photo being used as your site plan.
And I could just build it without having to come to planning and zoning.
Correct, you go through me, the zoning office. And actually, D&E comes before the commission. So
D, all of that comes
D is
before.
for uses permitted as of right with commission site plan approval, so they come before the commission, such as this hearing. And E requires a special permit, so that would be a public hearing, so public comment would be allowed.
Only on the-
So I'll just repeat and summarize, because we have said this a couple times just for clarity. So item B is an exemption. That means no permit required. They direct staff to do whatever improvement under the I, double I, triple I, and ID. So 1, 2, and 3, and 4 in Roman numerals. So no permit required, no commission, no public hearing, no public notification. Under item C, as of right with the zoning permit, the zoning permit is issued by the building official, the zoning official, excuse me, which would be Ryan. So that would go to Ryan, it would not come before the board, there would be no public hearing, no public notification. Item D, it's as of right with commission site plan review. So a site plan would come to the commission for review, however, there would be no public notification, no public hearing associated with those proposed uses. And then under the special permit, that would require certified notice to abutting property owners, public notice, as well as public hearing and public input. So those are the differences between those items.
And those particular items that do not need public hearings, who pays for those?
So they're all town projects, so they would all be paid by the town.
So me as the legislative body of the town would have no say in what goes on with what's being used with the money that my taxes are paying for.
There's no requirement in the proposed regulations for public notification or hearing for any items except those items covered by item D.
And that I don't, in 1221, that's asked to be deleted. Was that a requirement in 1221?
So under 1221, all municipal uses of land fell under special permit requirements. All.
So for clarity, this commission does not deal with monetary value
I
of those
understand,
projects.
yes,
And public can comment all they want on, we don't want our taxes being spent this way. That needs to go before the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. That is where the expenditures get discussed.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from members of the public? Come on up.
Sitting a little late, getting a little tired, so I'm just seeking some clarification. So the amendment with these changes, these are pretty much what already applies to the residents or anyone coming. There's no differences between the changes.
This is only for municipal uses. It doesn't affect regulations to residents or businesses.
So different set of rules for the municipal and the residents.
Residents are much more relaxed.
Really?
Yes.
Could you give me some kind of like an example for like a town use on like 700 square foot building versus in a town, what would be the difference right now?
Well, currently, the town would have to go through a special permit process with a full survey, site plan. A resident can just come in and draw a box on an aerial photo.
Okay. All right, so it's a good compromise then. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from members of the public?
Peg Gordon on Hill Road. I have a question. What kind of permit over, that do regular people have for 900 square feet? Do we have to have from the last? I don't know.
So if you exceed 900 square feet for a detached structure, for a garage or something that exceeds 900 square feet, it is a special permit. It does not require an A2 survey
As a taxpayer?
as a resident.
Okay. So the town is asking to do the same?
So up to 900 square feet, as what's proposed, the town would just get a zoning permit, same as any other resident. Over 900 square feet, just like a resident, would require site plan, require a special site plan review for the towns because it's more of a commercial type use, but doesn't necessarily need an A2 survey. The resident would be required to get a special permit simply because structure over 900 square feet might not fit in a residential area. So that's why the commission wants to have control over what's built.
Right. The town owns 500 500 lines or whatever in town. They own property. So they could, just for instance, on the informational sign that is exempt from the permit process, they could put any size informational sign they wanted there, and any kind of informational sign, or is there some kind of requirement?
They would have to meet the requirements for that particular zone. So most zones would be 50 square feet.
And it could be rated like the use of firehouse, that type of thing. Would that be accepted without
That would require a variance, so digital signs require variances.
Okay, thank you.
And it's from the public. Okay. Questions from board members?
I noticed that you changed this part about the zone districts. Municipal uses shall be allowed in all zone districts. Wasn't it just residential, municipal?
It's always been all zones.
Oh.
Brian, how was the 900 square feet, not to exceed 2,000 square feet, how was that square footage determined?
That was going off of what's allowed for residential zones, and then a cap was put in there for up to 2,000 square feet, just as an arbitrary cap.
Okay, so would the accessory structures be attached or detached?
So accessory structures are detached.
Detached? Because if a resident brings forward something exceeding 900 square feet, that requires a special permit, not a site plan review.
It does, because it could be out of character with a residential zone.
Right, so I'm just curious why the town would be allowed to come through as of right with commission site plan approval, whereas a resident would have to go through special permit, notify butters, notify the public, and have a public hearing for comment.
Because municipal uses are typically more commercial in nature than residential areas.
Just asking a question. Are there any other comments from the public regarding this application? Any other comments from board members?
So essentially, the town is looking for a way to save money for small things,
Money, time.
right? So I have this question, and I might be asking the wrong board. If I see that monuments are exempt, so if the town wanted to put up a monument, would they still have to, in some way, get that monument approved? I mean, if someone wanted to put up a monument that maybe the town didn't want, like, how does that work? If they're exempt from the planning and zoning, or does that mean they still have to sort of present like a plan elsewhere?
Well, if somebody wanted to put a plaque or monument now, if the town wanted to put it up, they wouldn't come before this commission.
Oh, okay.
It's not a structure, so
Right.
it was just clarifying that it's not, doesn't require.
Okay, so it wouldn't come through us anyways, if it was a monument, a statue of some kind.
Yeah.
But there's no size noted in the regulation. So a monument could be, I mean, think of the Washington Monument. Not that we would ever put that in Plainfield, but under these regulations, there's no size specification of project in these regulations. So if monuments are exempted, then the size of the monument could be to the moon, right?
Well, I would say once it requires a building permit, then it would have to come before this
So
commission.
what would the requirement be? What would the size limit be for the exemption?
I don't know, that would be up to the building inspector when he kicks in for building permit.
All right. Are there any other comments from the public? Just because I'm going to ask the board for a couple things. So 1, then 2.
Joanne Cunningham, 405 Lucid Pond Road. Can you please stop this? This seems to be like a halt of anything, particularly that right now the person in his office is trying to do. This needs to be stopped. I can understand about regulation, things like that, but this is getting ridiculous, okay? This is like nitty-picking, trying to move the town forward. Is this board against trying to move the town forward? I don't think so, but let's
be real here, okay? I think there's an underlying situation to this, and it needs to stop. I hope that you guys can really move forward with it and stop this nonsense. Thank you.
942 Norris Road. Just a clarification again, so that I'm understanding this clearly, that these changes, change from 1221 to 59, is basically to try to save money and to get projects done quicker.
Smaller projects.
Smaller projects, only the ones up to 900 square feet.
Which requires zoning permit.
Right.
Over 900 square feet and certain other uses will require site plan review, and then larger uses, new uses will require a special permit.
So this basic change is to not have public hearings so that the public can put their input on it as well, since it's going to benefit the town. I can see that a lot of these items are to benefit the town. But only a small group of people would be able to determine what those benefits would be, not the public themselves who live in the town.
I'm not sure of your question. I mean, I'm not sure.
I would like to know why the change and why eliminating public comment or public notification of things that would benefit me. If I would like to comment on that. Or not benefit me.
First off, let me just say again that under the current regulations, you need a survey. So one of the things that's being proposed here is that the survey could be waived for smaller projects.
Right. Which I agree with.
Yeah. And then the other thing is in the essence of time, going through the public hearing process also takes time. So
I'm just not getting it, I guess, because I don't see why you can't have checks and balances to make sure that the project is correct, that it benefits the town and it's done correctly, and have public comment on what's being proposed and built, rather than just seeing it.
So again, public comment is for things that could have an impact on the area. So a smaller project like a shed or a gazebo, public comment typically isn't necessary because there won't be an impact.
I'm talking about the bigger items.
Bigger items? Yeah. So, like I said, bigger items, large items do go for public comment. Those regulations.
Anything more than 900 square feet.
Anything more than 2,000 square feet.
See, that's where my problem is. I think that something that large should have some public comment, because of course the cost.
So the commission could adjust that.
And that would be my opinion.
Thank you. So these are proposed texts, so the board does have the ability to suggest revisions. Is there any other public comment on this application? One, then two.
Robert Smith, Community Ave. It seems to me we just went through a whole thing of stopping the town from exemption from the zoning, and from listening to this, we're about 3/4 there again. So why are we hearing it? We said no, it should be no. And from my point of view, we're 3/4 there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Jerry Jackson Road. I want to commend the people that worked on this. We came from the town not going to planning and zoning for any projects, and it's brought to our attention. And I like the compromise. I read the whole text amendment. I like the compromise, and I like that you're not posing any more restrictions on the town than you do on the rest of the residents. I do appreciate that, and I think it's a good thing.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Any other comments, questions from board members?
One comment similar to what I was just made, in that to me it seems like a park bench. You've got to go through all of the expenses and process of getting this bench. I mean, that's, I know about it.
Just remember it's public hearing, so
Okay, right.
just watch that line. That's all, it's not deliberation yet.
All right, but, again, I think a few tweaks here and there. I think the basic, premise was,
So what I'd like is to continue the public hearing to request that some revisions be made to the proposed text. I agree, small things can be exempted, but it is town property and the public should have notification and public input rights on larger projects. So I think there should be a carve out for what is exempt from the special permit process, but I don't necessarily think that all of the exceeding 900 square feet should be exempt from that public notification and hearing process. So looking at scope and size, so when we talked about monuments, if monuments as a category was exempt, then there was no size limitation. So I would like to see some more definition of size and scope of what would not require a permit at all, which means no public notice, no public participation. What would require zoning permit, which would be town staff only, no commission, no public notification. Because it is town property, so town notification and participation, I think, should be the higher bar than a resident, because a resident is the town, the property owner. So if we're excluding the property owner, which is the town, from the process, I think that would be something to be of concern. But I agree, small things like park benches, we could certainly have a carve out. So I would like to continue this public hearing to revise these regulations, to be more specific as to what the exemptions are, especially in size and scope. And noting that it is town property and the property owner are the townspeople, that there be public notification requirements, even if it was a site plan. So that the public does have the opportunity, although a site plan doesn't have a public hearing, so unless the regulation was revised to say that town site plans would be subject to a public hearing process to make sure the public was involved in the process. So those are some of the revisions that I'd like to see for our next meeting for review and presentation to the public. Do the board members have any input or feedback on what they want to see?
are we deliberating?
So if we're...
It sounds like we're about to start deliberating.
No, so during the public hearing process, we can make revisions to regulations. So I'm proposing that some revisions be made based on comment tonight.
You want me to say yay or nay to that?
No, it's just, do you have comments for staff? And then the decision would be, are we continuing the
I like
public
it
hearing?
as is.
Okay. So you would not be in favor of closing, continuing the public hearing?
One comment, I like it as is.
Okay. So do any of the other board members, you can close the public hearing with the regulation as it is. We can request staff to make revisions based on the feedback presented, and then the public hearing would be left open to present those changes. So that would be continuing the public hearing. Or you can choose to close as is. You can close the public hearing, but we would not be able to make changes to the regulation because we'd have to leave the public hearing open so the public could comment on.
We want to keep this moving forward, and we don't want to hinder growth at all. So I think that by continuing, just for one more public hearing, will allow us time to make very minor changes to the text, to just basically make sure the taxpayer is included. How's that sound?
Was that a motion?
I'm making a motion to continue.
Okay, I have a motion by Lindsay to continue. I have a second by John. All in favor of continuing? Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Any abstentions? Okay, so the public hearing is continued to our next regularly scheduled meeting in October. Ryan, did you capture the notes from this evening for those revisions?
I think so.
Okay. All right. And then, so then that draft would be circulated to members before the next meeting and presented to the public at the continued public hearing. Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to item E, 2316 SP at Route 12 Bulk LLC requesting a special permit for bulk propane storage and distribution on property located at 388 Norwich Road, Assessors Map 16, Block 56, Lot 24, C1 zoning district. And we have speaking for the applicant.
Yes, good evening. For the record, my name is Greg Lodge from Killingley Engineering Associates, the place of business at 114 Westcott Road in Danielson. Brian, do you have one more set?
I received revised plans.
So, sorry.
I did not receive hard copies, so let me browse one down.
That's
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to move a little closer to you guys so I can. Thank you.
Okay, so I represent Route 12 Bulk LLC, which is located at 388 Norwich Road. They have 18 acres. It's on the east side of Route 12, about a quarter of a mile up from where Cemetery Road and Route 14 intersect with Route 12. I've got the maps opened up to sheet number 2, which is the overall site plan. Presently on the site, there is a bulk oil facility that has been permitted there for a little bit more than 20 years ago that was put in. So there's an access drive that's at the upper part of the sheet that you can see, which goes to the very back of the property. The actual facility is located 800 feet away from Route 12. Back there are a few buildings. There's a oil building, there's a cell tower back there, there's a large paved area, and kind of a little driveway that's presently used for the trailer trucks that use the boat. I'm going to switch over to the site here now to show you. So we're seeking a special permit application under section 1248, which is for bulk propane. As you can see, this is the back portion. I'm on sheet 3 now, the back portion of the property. The shaded area that you see kind of in the middle bottom of the page represents where the 2 propane tanks will go. They are both 30,000 gallon tanks. They're going to be fit in an area that's 40 by 60. They will be fenced in. They have a crushed stone area that will be in that fenced area. There'll also be a guardrail around the fenced area. Basically, we've shown on the plan the 2 trucks and how they would position themselves when they're uploading and downloading propane from the facility. There's the lighter gray area that you see would be the expansion of the pavement that's out there. So we're proposing to put pavement millings in that area. So the trucks would access both sides of the tank location. Then they would continue on to the circular driveway and they would go back out of the facility. We do have a little bit of grading that's associated with that and a little bit of clearing in that area. We do show a 1 foot by 3 foot ditch or crushed stone ditch that will be along the embankment to treat any of the water to try to infiltrate that into the ground as it goes. At the bottom of the slope there, we do show some silt fence that will be in place for that when they do it, when they're doing the construction. There is a facility engineer that is working on the actual facility itself with all the safety procedures, like and that is Webb Engineering out of Massachusetts. So they will be, their plans will show all of the details for the structure that supports the tanks, all the valves, all the safety extinguishers, and things of that nature. So we put their similar notes on the plan for what they will have. It's all federally regulated, and they have to go through the building permit and the fire marshal with those plans when they go to construct it. I think one of the other items that we recently added to the plan was the lighting. There are existing lights for the facility. Mostly they're building mounted on the existing buildings that are there now. There are 2 pole lights as you come up to the top of the driveway, but those are existing. We're only proposing 2 lights, 2 additional lights, and they will be in the fenced-in area. They will be 15-foot high LED lights, downward only. I think cut sheets were provided to the town and were uploaded. And we do show the light throw on there. It's like a kidney-shaped thing where 2 lumens would be parking lot. That only is about a 20 by 30 area from the light. As you get out 80 feet from the lights, you would be at 0 lumens. So again, the light is directed downward, it would not be going off the property. We are required to be over 100 feet away from the property line with the facility. We do need that, and we are required to be, what was it? We're required to be 7 acres, we're over that, and we're required to be 300 feet from the road. We are over 300 feet from the road, access road that we have. We have no landscaping planned. We are maintaining 36 feet of existing vegetation along that southerly property line. That's the closest we get to any property line. Southerly, it's heavily wooded back there. That will remain in place. Therefore, we don't
Just for a
require.
moment. If the audience could just keep your side conversations while the applicant's speaking. This is a public hearing, so you'll have your opportunity to speak, but we just want to let the applicant present first, and then we'll take your comments once the applicant's done. Much appreciated, because the recording does pick up quite a lot. So, thank you. Continue.
Yep. So again, so we're not proposing any landscaping because we're providing adequate buffering. I think we're required to have 25 feet of vegetated buffer, so we will have the 36 feet at a minimum. In other areas, it will be a lot more. We did receive comments from Ryan, the zoning officer, on 8/31. I'm just going to go over those real quickly because I'm not sure if you looked over the plans that we submitted to him today. But he wanted the zoning districts added to the property. On sheet number 1, the cover sheet, we do show all the zoning districts. We're located in a commercial zone, but all the zones around us are like a R30, and then across the highway is an R60. So we do show those on that first sheet now. Existing and proposed electric communications lines should be added. So we do show now that coming from the bulk storage oil facility, which is in the middle of the page, we're showing a saw cut and the underground utilities and the labels for that going to the new building. There were provisions left in that building to, with some conduit to make that happen. So that has been added to the plan. A bulk table is required. So we did add a bulk table. It's to the left of the sheet there. It shows that we exceed all of the regulations that are required for this special permit, such as the size of the lot, the setback of the facility, and the landscaping, the landscape buffer requirement. Drainage calculations are needed, but I think we did hear back from Ryan can back me up on this, but we did hear back that they were satisfied with what we were doing from NECOG as an engineering review. And then he wanted certification that property complies with the town's flood ordinance, and also an illicit discharge certificate is needed. We provided those and sent those over to Ryan electronically. And then he mentioned the lighting, which I've already discussed. The other comments that they had were from the town planner, from Mary Ann Chinati. She wanted to, she also mentioned the site lighting, which we went over the site lighting. And she wanted the word site development plan added to the cover sheet. We did add that to it. And she wanted the revised signature block to say Plainfield, Connecticut, so we've added that to it. And then she also asked about the location of utility lines, so we provided that as well. That really ends my presentation, so I'll turn it back over to you if you have any questions for me.
Thank you. This is a public hearing, so this is your opportunity to make a comment or ask a question about this application. Are there any comments or questions from the public on this application?
Chet Phillips, 317 Norwood Road. Live in the adjacent property. I have anything against anything, but I do have a problem with 24/7 trucks in and out. And it's a fueling station now. It's a bulk station. Now you're going to add propane. There's going to be additional trucks. What are the regulations on operational hours? Why am I seeing 24/7?
I have to look at the original permit for that site.
Do you have that information with you? What the original approval was for the site?
I do not have that.
Okay.
I do know that they presently operate, the bulk oil does operate at 24/7, we're just continuing that.
So this would be an expansion of the current operation, and the current operation is running 24/7, but we're not sure that the actual approved use permitted 24/7 operation.
Correct, unless I do have Phil Tatro, who's the owner who's present here. I don't know if he has that information.
Initially, yeah, we were approved to run the clock, you know, to keep the tank full. You know, so-
Was that prior to it becoming a filling station? Was that permitted
So
separately?
just hold on, we don't want to start a debate back and
No,
forth.
not a
So
debate, I'm
just
just asking.
clarification
It
of,
was always a filling, the filling station was from initial impact, yeah,
how long has it been in operation?
about 21 years.
21 years. So it was still subject to zoning regulations at that time, 21 years.
Wasn't it back, I think, 98?
It was either 98 or 99. I was involved.
But it was
in at the
post
time.
77, so.
That's when we got approved, but the initial building didn't start up till 2000.
Okay,
When we got it all built.
so the expanded use of storage and distribution, the entire site operates 24/7.
Yeah.
So the expectation and request here is that the expansion of storage and distribution be 24/7 operation.
Well, I just asked that you consider people that live amongst it. You know, he has no control over the trucks that go in and out, but there's straight pipes and engine brakes, and I drove myself for 30 years and never disrespected somebody's property. And it's just, it's really too much. It's beyond it, you know. 24/7, you woke up from a sound sleep at 3 o'clock in the morning, you never know when it's in. I'd just like you to consider hours of operation would be.
Just for clarity, if we were to do any restriction on this, it would only be for the propane.
Okay, I see.
Because the other operation's already been approved, so this would just be on the special permit aspect of the application.
Okay. All
So
right.
the activity outlined in this permit.
All right, so our hands are tied to something. I see. Yeah, very good. I just consider it.
Tim Lagrange, 395 Knowles Road. I was involved when Phil first applied for the zoning change for that property, and it was to mitigate the hazard on Prospect Street in Moosup where his trucks were unloading into his tanks at the T&S Oil Company. We were told that that was for storage for T&S Oil to eliminate that hazard that was there. There was nothing said about a 24-hour-a-day filling station. The number of trucks with the gravel bank right there, that road is way too narrow for trucks and trailers coming out of there. I come up and down that road every day, several times. They're frustrated because they can't get out. I can't get out of my driveway in the morning for 5 minutes sometimes with the morning traffic. These guys are trying to get out with a trailer, and that road is not wide enough for them to not go into the lane of oncoming traffic to come over, and you get one of these from them. Thank you. You just scared the shit out of me. I don't need a thank you from you. And we need a turn lane there, or a stoplight where the lines are far enough apart where the trucks can come out and make their turn and not be hazardous. You know, we've been a good neighbor with Phil. Phil's a very nice guy. I'm not anti-business by no means. But the number of traffic, and we're talking maybe 50 more dump trucks, we know where they're coming north, them dump trucks. You got triaxles, you got school buses, you got everything. Pulling in our driveway, she had to abandon a turn into our driveway because a Plainfield town cop almost rear-ended her because he wasn't paying attention. People don't pay attention. We sit on our porch almost every day. We see people down with their heads down. Phil told us, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when somebody gets killed up on the corner on Prospect Street. We fixed the bad situation, and we made one worse. This one is way worse than what Prospect. That was a one-way street. This has two-way traffic where trucks with trailers, tankers, everything come out into that road and have to go into the oncoming lane, and they give you a wave. You know, I see their frustration, but something needs to be done with the road. It was never designed to be that width of that road. It's more of a hazard. And it was never said that there was going to be 24 hours a day service. I can usually go back to sleep. I used to live in Central Village, lived in town my whole life. The train goes by, you hear it. Last night it was 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock, and that's not bad, because most of the drivers are good. They go through the gears, but you got the idiots with the J brakes. Once I hear the J brakes, I might as well get up, because I'm so pissed off. Get up, go to work or something. You know, there's a lot of people traveling the road. The volume of traffic today is a lot more than 20 years ago when he petitioned us and told us that it was for TNS oil only. TNS was sold. What? So he's grandfathered in after this original? I don't know. So I'd like to see, you brought up a question that was the original permit allowed for 24-hour-a-day service, and the impact it's having on the residents in that area. I know a few more that wanted to come. One, she tested positive for COVID today, the neighbor right on the side of me. I mean, you know, enough is enough. I mean, we don't mind growth, but when it impacts our quality of life and could hurt our the value of our property. And I don't know what safeguards. You have propane, and then you have drivers, truck drivers, on the same property that could lose control of a truck or whatever and run through a guide rail barrier from a propane tank. And a cell tower that is a natural lightning rod that's grounded to the ground. Lightning travels through the ground. Is it safe? I can't talk on a cell phone at the gas pump, but we're going to have put 2 huge propane tanks on a lot with a cell phone tower? I don't know. I think we should really look at this and do a study on the traffic. And if we could get a stoplight there, I think that would, you know, I'm going deaf. I'm going deaf.
That would be outside the scope of this commission.
The noise is less and less of a problem.
Yeah.
But I was up twice last night, 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock, and it gets worse as the week goes on.
And what is the expected increase in traffic, given the increase in the storage and distribution? What would be the expected additional traffic?
I would say, in the wintertime, probably 40 trucks a day.
Given thing.
In the wintertime, there probably would be 4 or 5.
You know, I know that you have, I filled up there before myself. You have date stamps and everything for your billing purposes. You can tell us exact numbers, and I think the board should ask to see the actual numbers, because 20 trucks, we sit on the porch and have a coffee and we see 20 trucks in an hour.
Oh, come on.
Okay. Hold on, time out. So we're not going to have a debate, it's a public hearing, everybody gets their say, all right? We're not going to have argument, but we do have to resolve some questions, and that's what we're here to do.
I think we could get a true number, because that information is available, that they'll have.
Thank you for your comment. Is there any other public comment on this application? Any comments or questions from board members? So Ryan, since this is an expansion of a previously done permit, the original terms of that permit, we would probably want to see in order to assess if this additional use would follow those same, or if there would be separate for this particular use. Am I right that?
So this is considered a new use.
Okay.
You could set it to the same terms as what was previously approved in the 90s, or you could have further restrictions.
So this is considered new? So it's separate and apart. However, it might be prudent to understand what was previously approved, how it operates, and then make the decision on the new use, whether it should mirror what was previously, or given, 30 years later, whether we would want to institute other restrictions or conditions. Does that make sense? Okay. My other question in regards to amount of trips. So I'm going to ask to continue the public hearing to get that original permit information. So along with that, I would ask the applicant to assess more specific what your truck traffic is with current usage, and then what the expected increase would be, as well as what daytime, like peak hours, what your peak hours are, and then how many are overnight, is it weekends, is it holidays, is it, just to kind of capture those hours of operation so that we can just have a better idea of the scope of the operation, and then we can do that comparison so that we can better answer questions on the public. Okay. Any other from staff? Okay, given that, I'll entertain a motion to continue.
So moved.
Motion by June to continue. Second by John, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Public hearings are over. Calling the regular meeting to order. We do have additions to the agenda. We have item B and C under new business. If someone wanted to motion that onto the agenda. I have a motion to add item B and C.
Second.
Second by Frank, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, those are added under new business, item B and C. Any citizen participation that was not a public hearing? Okay. Hearing and seeing none, moving on to the unfinished old business. Item A, 23-6TA, Town of Plainfield zoning regulations, amendment to sections 1.2 definitions, section 8 commercial district, section 9 industrial district, section 12 special permits, and section 13 pertaining to cannabis. So we closed the public hearing and continued the deliberation to determine whether we wanted to adopt the regulations as is, make modification, minor modification, because the public hearing is closed. So are there any points of discussion regarding the proposed cannabis regulations?
Just as one addition, the police chief had not provided input regarding the 1,500-foot separation in time for last month's meeting. I talked with him the next day, and he was in favor of maintaining the 1,500 feet for consistency.
Okay. Any other comments regarding the proposal? So the commission can adopt the regulations.
Is there any reason we can't just say that's, don't want to move forward?
So,
is there any way we can just stop it and then come back to it later?
Okay.
I don't think we've had enough.
So we currently have a moratorium that expires April 1st of 2024, is that right? Okay, so there's a moratorium in place. So if there's no action on these regulations, nothing changes because there's a moratorium in place, so no business can come forward. At the time that the moratorium expires, if regulations were not in place, either prohibiting or allowing in either direction, then they could come in as right if it fit the zone that it was in. So I think we had all agreed we didn't want that to happen, and that's why we had staff draft the regulations here. So the board can choose not to adopt these. Since it was a town application, it was a board-initiated application, am I right? So the board could make a motion to withdraw. So if the board wants to take no action on these regulations and just shelve them until the moratorium in April, then it would be a motion to withdraw.
I think we gave opportunity for the public to speak.
Correct.
We had 2 public hearings on it.
Correct.
And I look back at the minutes, and nobody really had anything to say other than personal. So I make a motion to approve as is.
I'm not ready.
Okay, so there is a motion on the floor. If there is no second to that motion, the motion would die. So is there a second to Lindsay's motion?
I'll second.
I have a second by Frank. And just for item of deliberation before taking vote, there was one item that I think had been left unaddressed, which was in the draft regulations, there was language about having a maximum of certain manufacturers or facilities. I believe staff had recommended that that be struck from the regulation because the board had not indicated the number or the maximum.
And frankly, not only that, but based on the fact that the establishments are only permitted on state roads and only in commercial and industrial zones, that's very self-limiting to begin with.
And every application is special permit. Am I right about that? Yep. So there's not a single use that could come in without public notification, public hearing, and all of the special permit regulations.
Yeah, they're pretty, I feel like they rounded out well. I mean, gave the public an opportunity to speak on it.
If you would like to amend your motion or keep it the same, it would have to be amended in second.
And so I guess just to clarify, because the current text has those maximums and we didn't put a number in that, we would have to amend the motion to remove the maximum clauses. Would that be the appropriate motion?
Yeah, I would, as my recommendation, state approving the regulations with the deletion of 8-8.21J, K, 9.41Q, R, 9.42H, 9.42I. Those were the limiting factors. So with those eliminated, that would address that issue.
Okay. So Lindsay, did you want to amend your motion to include those deletions?
Yes.
Okay. So as read by Mary Ann?
As read by Mary Ann.
Okay. So Lindsay has amended her motion to approve the regulations with the deletions as read by staff. Do I have a second to that motion?
First, I have to do it.
Oh, do you second the amendment?
Yes.
Okay, second by Frank. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Effective date?
Oh, I'm sorry. Separate vote or another amendment?
You can amend that.
All right.
Effective date of October 1.
Okay, so Lindsay, would you like to make one additional amendment, effective date of October 1st?
My amendment is effective October 1st.
All right, I have an amended motion by Lindsay. Do I have a second by Frank?
Okay.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second for the approval of regulations with the deletions as stated by staff and effective October 1st of 2023. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
So we have one opposed, so the regulation is approved. Moving on to item B, 2310SP of American Industries requesting special permit to modify a previously approved earth excavation on property located at 0 Norwich Road and Rood Road, Assessors Map 5, Block 3, Lot 1, RA 60 zoning district. And that public hearing was closed. So we do have the ability to make a decision on this application tonight. Is there any items of discussion from the board on this application?
I'm hoping I'm looking at the right one, but I make a motion to approve with the start time. I want to make sure I'm just looking at the right one.
So just to refer back to staff's notes, the previous application did have hours of operation of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., no holidays or weekends.
A lot of my recommendations are mimicking what is currently in place.
Okay, so I'm just going to read the conditions of approval into the record so that if someone wanted to include these conditions, they are as follows. 1, maintain the current hours of operation Monday to Friday, 8 to 5 p.m., no holidays or weekends. Maintenance of equipment is allowable outside of operations, but no operating of equipment. Permit, number 2, permit will expire after 2.5 years, expiration date March 12th, 2026. Number 3, no more than 2 phases may be open at one time. Due to the open nature of the site and the potential for high winds, it is strongly suggested that the phases be reclaimed as the excavation progresses across the phase to reduce wind erosion. Watering will occur to minimize dust. Number 4, an as-built is required for each phase within 90 days of reclaiming the phase. The as-built shall show the limits of excavated area, grades of final excavation, basin limits and elevations, and finished slopes. The special permit and Mylars are to be recorded in the town clerk's office prior to receiving a zoning permit. The performance bond of $174,000 is to be revised to July of 2026 to allow for sufficient time for completion with a copy submitted to the zoning office prior to receiving a zoning permit to continue excavation. And item 7, 3 sediment monitoring sticks are to be installed across the basin to monitor the sediment level. The basin shall be cleaned, maintained as needed to allow for proper function. The sticks can be pressure treated 2x4 with painted measurements of 6-inch increments. So those are the conditions suggested by staff. Just one item of clarification, the maintenance of equipment allowed outside of operation, but no operating of equipment. Since there's no operation on holidays or weekends, I would also want to restrict the maintenance of equipment to match that. So I would ask that that condition include not allowed on holidays or weekends, but allowed outside of operation. But I wouldn't want it 24/7, so I would suggest that we have like a.
So you could say maintenance of equipment is allowed outside of hours of operation, Monday through Friday.
Could we put something like? I just wouldn't want like midnight, right? Like.
So you want to do 7 to say 7? Maybe 7 to 7.
Does that sound reasonable to the board as a condition?
Maintenance being driven at time?
Yeah.
Lovely.
Okay.
7,
Well,
So it'd be an hour before they
Just
open?
maintenance, but
Yeah, so they
still.
wouldn't operate the equipment, but an hour before they could tune it up, and then at the end of the day, they could clean it up, like,
2 hours.
yeah. If it sounds reasonable. I just don't want it to be free-for-all, that's all.
so maintenance is typically pretty quiet in most cases. You know?
Yeah, but just for consistency's sake. All right.
So 7 to 7, Monday through Friday?
Yep, and no holidays, no weekends. Okay. Any other items of discussion for this application? Okay, I'll entertain a motion, and if you're going to include those conditions, I would just ask that you state that in your motion, as read.
Make a motion to approve conditions as read.
I have a motion by Frank to approve with the conditions as read.
I'll second that.
I have a second by June. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, application is approved with conditions as read. Okay. Item C, 23-6 SPL of BH Trailers and Plows requesting site plan approval for gravel parking area for storage of inventory on property located at 1 Center Parkway, Assessors Map 17, Block 11, Lot I-25, IP Zoning District. Speaking for the applicant.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thank you. My name is Daniel Blanchett. I'm a licensed civil engineer. I work with J&D Civil Engineers out of Thompson. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Matt Hogan. Matt Hogan is the owner of BH Trailers and Plows. They sell trailers and plows. They're located in the I-Park. Matthew's proposing to construct a half-acre level gravel pad on one of the vacant lots next door, so he has more room for his inventory. of trailers and plows. Since the previous meeting, a couple updates. We did get approval from the Wetlands Commission. We submitted a drainage analysis, drainage calculations to the town engineer, Sil Hawley. He reviewed those, he did not have any comments. He did not have any comments on the site plan, the main sheet. He had a couple minor comments on the notes and details. He had 3 minor comments, which I could get into. I think we've addressed all his comments. Likewise, Ryan Gray gave me some comments last week. They were fairly minor. I think we've addressed them all. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Did staff have any additional comments on this application?
Only one. We did receive a request for a waiver of the illicit discharge certificate. That is not something required by regulations. The town engineer typically requires that, but did not this time. So no waiver is needed.
Any other comments from board members regarding this application? Okay.
Make a motion to approve.
All right, I have a motion to approve by June. I have a second by John. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, application is approved.
Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Moving on to item D, 23-13SP. I am recused from this application, so I will turn that over to John Meyer.
All right. Discussion on staff?
No, I believe it to be in compliance with the regulations.
Make a motion to approve. I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right, taking my seat back. Moving on to item E, and that is 23-3ZC of Zhonghe Li, requesting a change of zoning to 0 East Main Street from RA 19 residential to commercial 2, assessors map 1CB, block 85, lot 48. What's the status of this application?
We have not received payments or is incomplete, and you have, if you do not act on this application tonight, which you can't because you haven't had a public hearing, you must schedule a public hearing next month. But as we don't have payment, I recommend against that, simply deny.
So we can make a motion to deny without prejudice?
It's just a denial.
Just a denial for incomplete? Okay.
Incomplete application.
All right, so given there's an incomplete application, I would entertain a motion.
Yep. Make a motion to deny.
Okay, I have a motion to deny by Craig.
I'll second.
I have a second by June. And just to be clear, because it's a motion to deny, if you're saying yes, you are voting to deny the application. If you are saying no, then you're voting not to deny, just to be clear. All right? So given that motion, I'll entertain, I'm sorry, I have the, all those in favor of denying say yay. Yay. Any opposed to denying? All right, so the application is denied, and Ryan, you would notify the applicant?
They will be notified by mail.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Item F was a public hearing that was continued, so we just need to continue that item as well.
Motion to continue.
Motion by June to continue, second by John. All in favor of continuing? Aye. Any opposed? Application is continued. Item G was also a public hearing that has been continued, so I'll entertain a motion to continue that item as well.
Motion to continue?
Second.
Motion to continue by John, second by June. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and it is continued. Item H, 23-8 SPL of John Cruz requesting site plan approval for improvements to existing commercial, automotive, and addition to the building at 1411 Norwich Road, Assessors Map 5, Block 1, Lot 2, C1 zoning district. Do we have someone to speak for the applicant?
No, the applicant has requested a continuance next month, so that would be October 10th.
Okay. Given that, I'll entertain a motion to continue.
I will make that motion.
Second?
Motion to continue by June, second by John. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Application is continued. Item I, 2316 SP of Route 12 Bulk was a public hearing that was continued. So I'll entertain a motion to continue this item.
I'll make that motion to continue.
Motion to continue by June, second by John. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Moving on to new business. Item A, 2317 SP of Joel Panalikas requesting a special permit. Special permit does require a public hearing. I'll entertain a motion to schedule a public hearing.
I'll make that motion to schedule for October.
I'll second.
All right, motion by June to schedule a public hearing for our next meeting in October. Second by John.
October 10th.
October 10th. Thank you very much. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Public hearing. Item B, 23-8ZC of JPR East Main Street LLC, care of William R. Sweeney, Esquire, requesting change in zone. Zone change does require a public hearing, so I'll entertain a motion.
November 14th is what the applicant requested.
Okay, so more time for, okay.
It's not a
So,
vote, just one.
so the applicant has requested that their public hearing be scheduled in our normal meeting in November, which is the 14th,
Of November.
November 14th.
I'll make that motion to continue.
Scheduled.
Schedule for public hearing.
All right. November 14th, scheduled public hearing. Motion by June. Second by Frank. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, so that is scheduled to public hearing in November. All right. Item C, 23-9 SPL of Thanosaurus Constantinos Aristau, requesting approval to perform drainage improvements within the parking lot of 788 Norwich Road, Assessors Map 17, Block 13A, Lot 1, C2 zoning district. Do we have anyone speaking for the applicant?
We do not. This was received yesterday, and so I haven't had time to review it. It has to continue.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to continue to our next meeting in October.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by June. Second by John. All in favor of continuing? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that is continued. On to business. Review and act on the minutes of the August 8th meeting. Were there any modifications, changes to the minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make that motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve by June. Second by John. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Did we have any correspondence received?
The only correspondence we got was from the building official notifying the commission pursuant to Ordinance 99 regarding demolition of historic structures that the St. John's School is scheduled to be demolished for future fire department.
Okay, thank you. Report from zoning enforcement.
I do not have one for tonight.
Okay. Report from planning and development.
I have nothing to add other than my written.
Okay, I have nothing for other. If anyone else has nothing, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn by June. Second by John. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned.